Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show, and I'm jumping right into it because I've got my ace co-pilot back again, Matt Wilhelm, national championship winning linebacker with the 2002 Ohio State football team, former NFL star. Yeah, Matt, I'm calling you a former NFL star because anybody who makes it to the NFL is a star no matter how many Pro Bowls, right?
No, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate the accolades and the introduction, Tim. And always great to be with you.
Yeah, and you're a star of survival too. I mean, anybody watches the NFL knows it's no room for prisoners. Anybody that watched Ohio State at Notre Dame the other night, that was a knockdown, drag them out.
There were no prisoners for that either.
What?
I said there were no prisoners for that game either.
No.
It was a dogfight.
That's what we'll get into with you. Everybody's trying to sum it up in their own little inimitable style. Boy, Ohio State should have won by 3 touchdowns, or boy, Notre Dame really shut them down, all this kind of stuff. The way I look at it, Matt, this is an Ohio State team that failed defensively the last 2 games of the season last year at crunch time. That this, in the 4th game of this season against a top-ranked or top 10 team, number 9 Notre Dame, Ohio State, in the final analysis, won a defensive struggle, 17-14. Who had that score on their card, on their parlay card? Who knows? But just real quick, your first impressions. That we're going to look forward. This Ohio State has an off week this week. They don't play Maryland for 2 weeks. We'll talk about that next week. But just looking back on that game, everybody was pointing at this game as a harbinger game, one way or the other. Your initial thoughts now, you've had a couple of days to digest it.
Absolutely. Well, my initial thoughts are, I'm of course glad we came out on the top side of that dogfight because yeah. I think we found 2 different teams with 2 different styles. Notre Dame is truthfully is probably much more of a finished, polished product that's ready to compete for a national championship. Whereas even through the first 3 games of our season, at Indiana, then the 2 home games against lesser opponents, we're still very much a work in progress. With the offensive line, with the quarterback, and then I think with our first really big challenge defensively, with some weapons that are guys that could very much likely be wearing the scarlet and gray, with the type of recruiting that we are out there nationally. So it was a great to come out on the top side of that victory, as I said, and I thought I loved the Ryan Day comments soon after the game. About Lou Holtz. I mean, and this about me, Tim, even at my time at Ohio State, it's like, I don't mind naming names if there's someone to be named,
man.
Whether it be a captain situation or someone talking smack and, you have that opportunity because you only have so many opportunities in your life to actually go. We backed up and went against everything that you talked about. And I guess, and I'll say this just to touch on it, and not make a big stick about it, but like, you look at the old, decrepit Lou Holtz sitting in that big, lazy boy chair on the Pat McAfee show, blurting off at the mouth about, and again, Notre Dame, this academic institution, there wasn't a humble bone in his body with Lou Holtz blurting out what he did. And then he rattled off Bama, Georgia, Michigan twice, and Clemson, right, as the teams that Ryan Day has struggled to beat, and of course, why he struggled to beat them. Well, first of all, when's the last time Notre Dame scheduled Clemson, Michigan, played Bama with Manti Te'o in the national championship? Well, how did that go for you guys?
Yeah,
in that game, and of course they couldn't hold Georgia's jock in a football game probably over the last decade of Notre Dame football, and probably won't for the next decade moving forward. So I just thought it was a completely one-sided statement, and I just love that Ryan Day, and I hope. Kind of the way the 2002 national championship team took it as a chip on their shoulder ahead of like the victory parties that were being planned ahead of the game being played, and that reverberated through our locker room, not so much from our coaches, but we as players were very well aware of those. And I hope that Ryan Day and all his players were made aware of those comments and kept that in their file bank somewhere, not at the front of their head as they had to go out and do, and do their job and finish off the deed, but keep that in their bank. And you saw the Ohio versus the world flags didn't just show up on accident. Those were there, and Ryan Day's comments about Ohio versus the world and Ohio, being tough and everything, and the guys in that locker room giving me goosebumps now. I had the opportunity, soon thereafter to text Coach Day, congratulations, and, love those comments. And I love them to this day. And I think it's a big step for this program. And we'll get into it as we go. But I think overcoming and getting to see how a very physical, well-coached, veteran-laden offensive line was going to block our defense and attack our defense in the run game. Because I think that's the same thing we're going to see out of Penn State, and it's the same thing we're going to see against that team up north.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. That's what I'm glad you brought that up. But I wanted to ask you this, though. I mean, there's like 1,000 questions as you're speaking there that pop into my brain. I have to get them in order and then eliminate 999 of them, right? What does it do for a player on a team? You know, we saw the emotion that Ryan Day had about them being a finesse team, them being a soft team. Those were the things that were going on, and not just coming out of Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz just happened to speak up at exactly the wrong time.
Of course.
He was a lightning rod. But Ryan Day was speaking to the masses there, pardon the expression, being at a Catholic school, not just Lou Holtz. What does it do, though, for a player? So, number one, hear your coach speak up for you. But then number two, you know that the doubts are out there about a team's, quote, toughness. You're paying attention. Everybody's on social media anymore. What does it do for the players going forward to get that in their backpack?
Well, I think it builds belief. And I think in some cases, since the baton was passed from Urban Meyer, with all his successes and 6 to 9 losses over the course of almost a decade of coaching at Ohio State, being undefeated against that team up north, and the baton gets passed to Ryan Day. And then Ryan Day has massive early success because he inherits, such an amazing roster and an amazing opportunity, and does his diligence with it, and then just couldn't overcome some of those big hurdles. And you're talking some quality national championship level programs. So that's not to discount, who we are either. But then, as I'm sure every year when there's a shortcoming, whether it's Clemson or Bama or Georgia or that team up north, I'm sure Mickey Marotti and Ryan Day and those coaches go in and go, well, what can we do differently? Yeah. What can we study differently? What X's and O's can we change? What can we do in the weight room to build that, and out on that field with winter workouts to just build that toughness and grain into, in some cases, the kids that we recruit that could very well be, a little white collar-esque in some cases, and get them draw the blue collar out of them and embrace that in our program. You start to question those things. What are we doing wrong as opposed to what, and also what can we do different? You're always chasing that thing.
Yes.
And what this does for Ryan Day on down through the coaching staff and Mickey Marotti, and a lot of it's always the same, but also even more so, it just builds belief. It builds belief that all the hard work, I'm sure the torturous workouts, the extensive hours that the coaches spend away from their families, the hours that the players spend outside of academics, away from their families and studying, or over at the Woody getting extra work in, it just builds belief and edifies the process that you're in right now. And every year it's a little bit different. There's a little tweak. You just can't keep doing the same thing. You have to sort of recreate yourself because every roster is a little bit different. Every schedule you play is a little bit different, on the road, at home, early contests like this, at Notre Dame. And so it just builds belief. And I think two things that I felt about Ryan Day is not only does he went to bat for his roster and on national television showcase the toughness of those guys, which just has the players in that locker room go, I love that guy even more. And I'm glad I'm here in Scarlet and Gray. I think it also, and it has to be a continuation as the season goes on, because as you said, Maryland, we've got Penn State, we've got that team up north at the end of the season, which is not going to be very easy. But I think it also reverberates into the kids you have committed in the 2024 class to go, I'm glad I'm committed here, and I can't wait to play for that guy. I think it also puts a little bit of doubt maybe in guys that have maybe chosen another place, or a little bit in flux on the recruiting road, that might go, I don't really know where I want to play. I'm committed here, but man, on national television with everything on the line, that fire, that passion that Ryan Day had the opportunity to kind of explode in that moment, just gets the blood boiling, gives you the goosebumps, and goes, man, they were my number 2, but now things are a little bit more iffy now. And as I said, we've got to continue on that road of competing for a national championship. And that means, in some cases going undefeated. But long story short, it's survive and move on. They were on our schedule. They've been on it for pardon my French, a decade now. And we we overcame that hurdle 2 times in a row, and we're on to the next.
Yeah, I was going to say, bottom line is 6 straight wins over Notre Dame after dropping the first 2 in 1935 and 36. You know, my dad was 10 years old the last time Notre Dame beat Ohio State, and my dad's been passed away now for 15 years. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
that gets old fast. You know, the all the national championship banners and everything, like at Minnesota and places like that. It is, what have you done for me lately? And I agree with you. It gives you certification that the work you put in the off season, because I've always been intrigued by that aspect. You know, you say that you do this, and we're going to get to here. But the bottom line is everybody else is trying to do the same thing. You know,
Of
everybody's
course.
trying to get from here to there. But boy, it just gives you belief, like you said, in the Marotti approach, in the Ryan Day approach, in the Jim Knowles approach. Because let's face it, they had to get the ball back the other night.
They did.
And what I keep trying to tell everybody, I've been saying this, it was like you guys against Miami in 2002, the national championship game. Boom, Miami ties the game on the last play of regulation with a field goal, longest field goal that player had kicked in his career. And you got one finger on it. As you told me, if you'd
I
gotten
might have
2
kicked
on
it
it.
back in.
Exactly. But the bottom line is brand new ball game. Now, who wins? Y'all won. Y'all made plays on offense in overtime, and you made plays on defense that finally won the game. That's what this team did. Everybody's looking at the whole game. I'm looking at once Notre Dame took the lead, 14-10, what did Ohio State do? It went down and failed on a 4th and 1, but then the defense got the ball back. And what did the offense do? It went down and scored.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, on your sentiment there, it's like if you just go back to like the last 5 minutes of the football game,
Right,
of having to get that stop, the coaching, our coaches managing the clock appropriately for the guys on the football field, you know, using timeouts where we needed it to give us the best opportunity. And then I think where we talked about what does it mean for the program. I think what does it mean for our quarterback is another great narrative we can talk about is him on the road in this moment, first big challenge, you know, to live up to the expectations of wearing the scarlet and gray, being a quarterback on what the quarterback position has meant, you know, so probably since Tress came with Troy winning the Heisman and Urban and his guys with JT Barrett and Haskins and then Fields and then, and Braxton Miller and TJ Stroud. And now you're this guy who's been, and a narrative's been created around him, even in our own fan base, because there's been another guy that they've wanted to potentially compete for this opportunity. But you go on the road, you win this game. And I think more so than anything, in that last 5 minutes, you make the throws and the decisions and you have poise and you took off and ran with the ball, which I know a lot of people have been asking for the guy, who's now in Houston to do, his entire career. And it took him till, the college football playoff to do so.
Yeah.
That confidence from the fan base, that confidence from the national pundits, but more so than anything, and it's not that it was never not there, the edification and the confidence from his own teammates and his coaches.
Yeah.
That he's the guy, this is his team, that he overcame this hurdle, that we rode his back to make those throws, in big moments. There's no question about who our quarterback is anymore. You don't need to see the other guy because this is the guy. And now we can move forward and prepare for Maryland. And he gets the lion's share, the 90% of the snaps, and only 10% in case of injury does the other, the typical, he's getting the CJ Stroud treatment, in that building now because of this win. Yeah.
Or as I asked Chip Trainum after the game, I said, is there any more debate I'm paraphrasing here, but is Kyle McCord now basically, is he your bona fide starting quarterback, and he looked at me funny, he goes, hell yeah. I was just trying to get a rise out of him, but the players believe in this guy. They haven't believed in him for a while, but like you said, man, anybody needs that moment where there's a huge check mark. Like it is, pardon the expression, he is bona fide.
He is, and I'll just say this: it's and I was talking with someone earlier this morning just about the Buckeyes and the game in general, and I just go, Ryan Day is a different acquired taste that Jim Tressel was when he got here, that Urban Meyer was when he got here, and of course the winning has personified. But it's like this helps helps rest that narrative. Still has many challenges in front of him. Kyle McCord's persona and his gameplay is not going to look like CJ Stroud's. He's not going to talk like CJ. He's not going to make the throws like CJ. And it's just so we have to wrap our head around as a fan base of what winning with Kyle McCord and Ryan Day is going to look like, and it's going to be different from what it looked like the last 2 years and what it looked like with Justin Fields as well.
Yeah. By the way, wait a minute. I smell something, and it smells really good. I'll get right back to you in just a minute. Okay, Matt?
Yes, sir.
I'll tell you what that aroma was. It was the sweet smells of my wife whipping up this little number, creamy chicken, sausage, and kale cavatappi right out of the package that HelloFresh left at our doorstep. All the ingredients from an onion to the kale involved, 2 cloves of garlic, a lemon, cavatappi pasta, Italian chicken, cream sauce base, sour cream, chicken stock concentrate, Parmesan cheese, all came in that bag. All she had to do was add, the cooking oil, the butter, the salt and pepper of her choice. But the bottom line was, man, what a delicious meal this was. And for folks who are looking for that quick gourmet meal when they get home from a long day at the office or a long day at work, HelloFresh delivers it right to your doorstep. They have 40 recipes available now and over 100 add-on items that you can choose from every week. And what it mainly does, it keeps you from having to go out and shop purposefully for these little bitty ingredients that can make all the difference in a secret sauce or whatever in a really, really, truly gourmet meal. I've come to enjoy these meals. I've had several of them now, and they've all been extremely tasty. And I'll tell you what, if you go to HelloFresh.com/50TimMay, that's 50TIMMAY. If you go there and use the code 50TimMay, you will get 50% off your first purchase plus 15% off over the next 2 months. So this is quite the time to take advantage of HelloFresh because there's a lot of things going on in the fall, not the least of which is getting to and from big time college football games. So go to HelloFresh.com/50TimMay and use the code 50TimMay. That's 50TIMMAY for 50% off your purchase plus 15% off the next 2 months. You can't go wrong with HelloFresh. I know I'm glad that we discovered it. Yes, I really do like that HelloFresh, but that's another conversation for another podcast. Matt, getting back to what you were talking about the acquired taste or the new taste, let's put it that way, of Ryan Day and what he has brought to this program and stuff. I whispered to him as he was leaving the stadium the other night, after his vociferous press conference, which was really kind of cool because never seen that from Ryan Day. Been around him since 1917. Never seen that from Ryan Day. It was in him. He does that in the locker room and elsewhere, but rare in public. And I said to him, I said, I kind of like this new Ryan Day, and he just sort of smiled at me. But the bottom line is, he does breathe fire. He does have venom. He is a big time elite college football coach who's only lost 6 games. And and then the losses, those 6 losses, most of them were highly contested except for one, maybe 2. Yeah, maybe 2. Maybe 3 when you count both those Michigan losses and that Alabama loss in the national championship game. But the bottom line is, a win like that does a lot for everybody, but just specifically, we talked about it earlier about the team. Now I want you to tell me what it can do for Ryan Day going forward. You never want to be a fake person. I don't believe in that position. But what does it do going forward for the fan base to even know that is in him? You understand what I'm saying?
Of course. And I think that, in small little snapshots, when the camera pans over and we have to take a bad timeout, either offensively or defensively, we're either lined up wrong on offense or the play clock's running low when he felt like the coaching staff got the play in and then the players just went and messed it up on the football field. You see that fire in Ryan Day when the execution and I think the hard work they put in all week that they're better than what they're out there in that one situation. I see the fire. I see the competitive nature, and that's the one thing that I think a lot of people discount is, and it was it might be Jim Harbaugh's comment about, what is it, rounding third base?
Born on third base and think they hit a triple.
There you go. Exactly. Thank you so much. But it's like, well, everyone that takes over these programs when, a legendary coach leaves, or in some cases gets fired because it's just not that good enough anymore, inherits that same access to third base.
Yes.
Because it's a blue blood type program. But I think this is where you will see, and I think in some cases, and I think Joe Klatt is I think he's an amazing analyst, because he's done so many. Him and Gus have done so many Ohio State games, since the Fox TV deal a few years back now, and Big Noon Kickoff has been in Columbus, probably a half dozen times. His analysis on of course, Urban Meyer, because of that era and the transition to Ryan Day, both, as you said, in 2017 as the first few years as quarterback and offensive coordinator, now he's the play caller and head football coach. To get a snapshot as just not the brains and execution of orchestrating our offense, but the leader of men, that the head coach of any football team, even a high school football program, needs to be to mold and develop these young men. And at this level, the margin for error is razor thin. And again, we all thought as a fan base, and I'll say this critically, and I'll say this to Ryan Day if I see him on the Buckeye Cruise in February. The fourth down call after a timeout to Emeka Egbuka on the fly sweep, it's like, is that really all we got? And do we not have access to, if we don't get the look, we can check out and do something else?
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you.
Sure.
I think sometimes it's folly to take a timeout only because then you talk yourself into a play that you think is going to catch them, when in fact the play, is what you do best. You know what I mean? And
if you got what you wanted, because you wanted time to think about it, you kind of probably got what you expected on that fourth down from Notre Dame, meaning like the personnel grouping and the defense with 90% certainty that they're going to be in.
Yes.
And then you can run the one play or two plays that you have scripted up and practiced a dozen times this week to execute it. And when you give them a timeout, then you also give them time to come out and either something different or show something and stem to something different, bring guys down, that you might not have expected, which would have not happened had you not called timeout. So that's the chess match that I can get into and we can dig into for an hour on a different podcast. But it's little things like that. But at the end of the day, I think you look at the last two plays. You took your shot with confidence in your quarterback to deliver a throw to the best wide receiver in football.
In one-on-one coverage. He was man-to-man coverage. Yeah.
One-on-one coverage. You got the look. Again, goes back. You got the look that you wanted.
Yeah.
The throw wasn't quite the throw, and Marvin didn't really create separation because the corner. And again, I hate to say this, at the NFL level, we always used to say, well, he gets paid too. Well, he's a star. He's a 4-star cornerback too, guarding Marvin in that situation, and had blanket coverage. So touche. And then you have a coach, not only that we now know is fiery and confident and has trust in the guys in that locker room. And to use that word trust is, we're going to run them. That's your fault, Notre Dame. You only had 10 guys, you academic institution. You only tried out. And Marcus Freeman, in his comments, trying to outthink himself. So who outthought themselves by not wanting to call a timeout and giving us that opportunity? We trot out our big, thick, physical running back, and we run it right down the gut, and you can't stop it. Would they have loved to have a 3 technique or a 2 technique right there to have to get blocked to stop that play? I'm sure, but that's on them, and it's on us to have the guts to call that. And having not got in on the goal line earlier in the game, and then calling a fly sweep, to try to get a little too cute on a fourth down situation as well, just earlier in the fourth quarter. So props to Ryan Day, props to the program. I think it's a huge win. And then I'll just say this, and I actually found myself as a former player who's just so spoiled sometimes with the success at Ohio State.
I'm going to get to that. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I went back to, and I went 39. So since the 2002 national championship game, okay, in 2002, when we won 14-0 and didn't lose a game, in the 21 years of Ohio State football since that game, regardless of coach, although Luke Fickell has 7 of them attached to him as an interim head football coach, 39 losses in 21 years. That's 1.85 per season.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wouldn't
and you
kill
just
for
go,
that?
who, what, you, and I mean, there's maybe 3 where it's got to be top 1 or top 2 over that same period of time. And 5 are probably within another 4 or 5 losses, maybe say 45 or less in that same time period. But like, the expectation is, but attach that to any one man and those expectations, and it's extremely hard to live up to. So let's embrace this, celebrate this, know that we have, and I think, and I said this immediately after the fact, the game was over. I go, we survived it, we won, and now we get 2 weeks to get Marvin 100% healthy on that ankle with a bye. And then we have a challenging, always challenging and interesting Maryland team, and then another big challenge against Penn State at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't leave Purdue.
Well, I discount the Purdue game. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, everybody forgot about Purdue. What was that, 2016 or 17? And then went over there and got, as the old saying goes, they got bushwhacked.
Yes, they did.
I wanted to ask you about that though. This is the intriguing part. I was speaking to a club back before the season started down here, and I go, where did this ever come about that Ohio State? And I'm talking about, I think most Ohio State fans are sane, you know what I mean? And they understand how life works. But where did this fringe come from that thinks Ohio State, not just competing for a national championship, perhaps even playing for one, and then perhaps even winning one? When did it come about that they consider that's the birthright, and anything short of that is failure? And I traced it back finally in my brain to 2002, when this little team that could stepped up and went 14-0, the first team in college football history to go 14-0. And this is what I want to get to with you in this podcast. There were 4, maybe 5 games that year. I'm trying to remember them all. Y'all could have easily lost. Easily could have gone the other way.
I'll just call the last 4, including the national championship game.
Yeah.
You got Purdue, Holy Buckeye. You got at Illinois in overtime.
First overtime game in Ohio State history. Yeah.
Right. And then 14-9 in a dogfight against, at home on senior day.
Will Allen interception in the end zone.
Yeah, for a chance to play for a national championship. And then, of course, the national championship game goes to 2 overtimes.
Yeah.
So you've got
let's leaving out that ridiculous game at Cincinnati, which could have
correct.
They had 4 shots at you.
Tip in the end zone, another Will Allen interception.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, go ahead though. Pick it up, man.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a challenge, and that's the one thing that I think from a mentality standpoint, when you have it, I'll say it's probably starting from the seniors down, because this is in many cases your last time to play football unless you're going to project into the NFL. The severity of the game week to week, especially when you carry a 0 in the loss column. It's just, can we do it again? Can we do it again? And then when you start doing it a little too much, you start to hear which one's a trap game, which one's a trap game, which game, and you refer back to Purdue in 2016 and the Iowa game. In the Urban era, when you go there and lose as a top 5 team in the country, and you just go, well, which one? Who's going to catch us? And then if you get caught, and again, they're all going to be a dogfight. And I mean, we're finding this out at the high school level with my son's team at Eds. It's like, when you're the best at what you do, you've got a target on your back. You're going to get everybody's best effort. But that's the reason why you go out and get the 5 stars, the 4 stars that just aren't physically gifted, but also mentally gifted. That's why Mickey Marotti and the time that you can spend with him is significantly more time over time than you actually probably spend with your position coach, is because that's the physical and mental strength that you need to perform, your task then given to you by your position coach at your position on a Saturday. So I think it's extremely unique. And I think you're in the pressure cooker, but I'll just say it like this, that spoiled, win or go home or win or it's nothing type of mentality. It's Florida. Florida's really never been back, since Urban left. Florida State's really never been back. You look at Notre Dame since Manti Te'o. What year was that?
Yeah.
I mean, they've never been back, and really, like now 9 in the country. Now they're going to drop to 15, probably lose to USC later in the season. They'll probably drop another game later in the season. And they're going to finish in the teens or early, young 20s, play in a January 1 bowl game because they drive ticket sales and have a fan base that travels. But like, so forgettable. And yet we have a 0 in the L column. We've got a couple of big challenges left that I know Ryan Day and this team need to overcome, and we'll be exactly where we're expected to be every year as a Buckeye fan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what more do you want, ladies and gentlemen? Hey, last question for you.
Yes, sir.
What does getting that stop? And, like you said, we could do 10 podcasts in a row and not touch on everything, but but it's just amazing. You go out and recruit 5 stars and high 4 stars, and a JT Tuimoloau makes a play there on, Notre Dame's last possession. Sonny Styles and Lathan Ransom, they stopped a 4th down try with just great football savvy, being there at the right place, right time. As Jim Knowles calls it, seeing the forest, they can see the forest despite the trees. You know what I mean? Just right on down the line. The big time players do step up for you, like Emeka Egbuka, even Marvin Harrison Jr., all 3 wide receivers, all of them 5 stars or high 4 stars coming into Ohio State. All 3 of them had big catches on that drive.
Yep.
Sure. Fleming,
yeah, it means a lot. Yeah, it means a lot. And I think, and specifically for the defense, Notre Dame, with that big physical offensive line, kind of controlled the day, especially the second half. I just kept hearing Blackledge reference time of possession, and they've got 34 plays to our 15. And they were doing it with the ground game and with that darn tight end, which will have to get figured out with Jim Knowles and the defense. But it's, big players are never shied away from big moments. And I think it's a combination of players embracing the pressure to make that play, because that's why you come to Ohio State. You come to play on national television, you come to play in big games, and you come to make that play when it falls on your lap. That's the catches, that's Harrison, that's Ibuka, that's Cade Stover, that's Sonny Styles stop. But you're called in that moment, but it's a combination of your understanding of the defense, knowing exactly or feeling really comfortable with what your opponent's going to do, and then rising to the occasion with the mental and physical toughness that was developed in the weight room and developed by Marotti and those position coaches to make that play. And here's the thing about it is they're going to get, some accolades and get, winning
pats
grades and get pats on the back and get doted on. But only for like 2 or 3 days. And they might extend in because it's a bye week. But for these players, the way that they're wired, it's like, I did what I was supposed to do, and in the next opportunity, I'm going to do it again and again. So when is that next opportunity? That next opportunity is going to be against Maryland. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Matt, it's always a pleasure having you sitting, for these long flights, having you sitting in the right seat next to me for these conversations, which I'm glad the cockpit voice recorder picks up clearly. Can I ask one last question? I know you got to get out. Yes, of course. No worries.
You got to hit that ejection seat. Yeah, we're the only airliner with an ejection seat. What do you do with this team now? Because like you said, this team doesn't strike me as possible big-headed. Any team has
still figuring things out. Yeah.
But they went through, most of these guys were around last year. They know what happened at the end of the year last year. They know the big tests. I mean, Penn State and Michigan, the best division of a conference in college football is the Big Ten East. And that's just more and more clear now than it was a week ago. I don't see the potential for a big head. Do you see a potential for a big head factor?
I do not. I think with this opportunity with a bye week coming up is an opportunity. I think first and foremost is to get healthy. I don't necessarily, some coaches like to use the verbiage of, you need to get away from the game for a little bit. I don't think we get away, because if we get away too long, you kind of lose the edge and lose some of that adrenaline that you just and momentum that you just picked up, especially with a game like we had just won and of course in the fashion that we won. But then I think lastly, the one thing that I always know that coaches and players do is self-scout, is getting critical on yourselves as coaches with the play calls and the personnel groupings and the play calls in certain situations. It's what, in basically layman terms, what works and what doesn't. What do we do well through 4 games and what do we struggle with? And then how do we identify those strengths and weaknesses, get better at the strengths and fine tune those, and then fix some of those weaknesses so that you come out of the bye week rested, healthy and performing better.
Besides the tight end finding that little lobe, in zone coverage to get into, and they did a good job of that. Notre Dame did, converting. What is one other thing? What is something that you definitely want to see rise from this defense the last 8 games of the regular season? Is it the pass rush? What is it?
It is. It's going to be the pass rush. I'm going to say it's like the front 4, the front 5. And the reason why I say that is because, again, I would say probably anybody who's going to go, Michigan and Notre Dame probably have the 1 or 2 best offensive lines in the country. Well, you could tell Notre Dame was well coached and, of course, highly skilled up front. And I think that I want to see the improvement along the defensive front. I want to see more pressure. Sam Hartman, even with that tight end, he had a lot of time, and it wasn't like he was running around extending the plays all that much, just fairly comfortable. And I know that we're only bringing 4 so that we can drop 7, which is also why you hold the football a little bit longer. But then I would say our linebackers and safeties' inability to, at some point, you have to start locking up or matching up with a guy down the field in zone. You just can't keep playing your zone forever and a day when there's no one in it. Play man match. So I would say it's all predicated around our front 4, because there were times in the game where Notre Dame could run the ball with any one of their 4 running backs and get 4 yards or more on every clip. So that's 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2. That is an on-schedule offense. So I want to see our defensive line get a little bit more disruptive. And I even went through the stats really quick, and it's like 2 TFLs and no sacks. Yeah. So that means the game is being played on the offense's agenda. Predication agenda. We're not playing and being disruptive on their side of the line with negative runs, negative plays, putting them behind the sticks and getting them off schedule. So that's my number 1 priority. But I thought the corners held up really well, and it was really just safeties and linebackers, that couldn't corral that tight end that seemed to make a big play every time we got them to 3rd and 7+. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always said, people talk about zone, but zone defense eventually dissolves into man-to-man, in almost every situation. Because the main thing is you don't want somebody catching the ball 12 yards down the field. That's a first down on any down almost. But anyway, hey, once again, Matt Wilhelm, thanks for joining the Tim May podcast. The Tim May Show as my able-bodied co-pilot. And we're going to hook up many more times, right?
My pleasure, Tim. Absolutely. Anytime you need it, I'm here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, until next week, we'll see you then.